Hi guys, welcome back to this channel. So in this video we are going to look at the topic network hardware. Now think about it. When you use the internet or you share files over Wi-Fi, how do all these devices communicate? That's where network hardware comes in. So let's dive into the topic. Okay, first we have network interface card. So one of the most important components of any network device is the network interface card, NIC. So this hardware is component is what allows a computer or device to physically connect to a network. So whether the network is LAN or the internet, this device is needed to connect to the network. And most devices today have this built in. Okay, it has this built in into the device. And one interesting fact is that your NIC also stores MAC address. Okay, MAC address is a unique identifier given to your device at the time of manufacturing. So this is the function of network interface card. Now let's look at MAC address. So we say MAC address is a unique identifier that is given to a device at the time of manufacturing. Now, a MAC address is made up of 48 bits as 6 groups of hexadecimal digits. Okay? Now, the first 6 hexadecimal digits, which is this one, okay, it is used to identify the manufacturer of the device. For example, let's say Apple. So when we look at this first 6 hexadecimal digits, then we know that the manufacturer is Apple. And the second 6 hexadecimal digits is unique to your device. Okay, it is the device serial number. So here is something very important to note. If you replace your network interface card, the MAC address of your device will change too because it is tied directly to the hardware. So that is MAC address. Now, there are two types of MAC addresses. Okay, we have the UAA, universally administered MAC address, and then we have the LAA, locally administered MAC address. So UAA is far the most common type of MAC address. Okay, and this is one of the this is the one that is set by the manufacturer. So a UAA is set by the manufacturer, while LAA is set manually by a user or admin. So why would someone need to change a MAC address using LAA? So the first one, it says certain software used on mainframe system need all the MAC addresses of devices to fall into a strict format because of this. Now, some enterprise system requires all MAC addresses to follow a specific format. So because it needs to follow a specific format, then this address will need to be changed. Also, it may be necessary to bypass a MAC address filter on a router or a firewall. Only MAC addresses with certain formats are allowed through. Otherwise, the devices will be blocked if their MAC address doesn't adhere to the correct format. What does this mean? In restricted networks, only specific MAC addresses are allowed. So if your address does not match, then you may be blocked. Okay, to get past certain types of network restrictions, it may be necessary to emulate unrestricted MAC address. Hence, it may require the MAC address to be changed on certain devices connected to the network. So in some cases, changing your MAC address can help to bypass filters, or emulate another device. And of course, this should be done responsibly and ethically. Now, let's look at IP addresses. So, Internet protocol. So, when a device connected to a private network, a router will assign a private IP address to it. So this IP address is unique on that network, but it might be same as an IP address on a separate network. So an IP address is an address that is used to identify a device globally. Now, there are two major types of IP address. Okay, we have IPv4 and IPv6. So IPv4 is based on 32 bits and the address is written as four groups of 8 bits. So, for example, like this. Now, because of the use of only 32 bits, considerably reducing the potential number of devices and routers that is used on the internet at any one time. Then a newer version is called IPv6 is now being used. So what does that mean? 32 bits can only give us about let's say 4.3 billion unique addresses, and we have outgrown that. So in order to be able to have more than these 4.3 billion unique addresses, so IPv6 is now being used. So IPv6 using 128-bit addresses that takes the form of 8 groups of hexadecimal digits. For example, this. Okay, so what are the main advantages of using IPv6 compared to IPv4? Number one, it removes the risk of IPv address collision. So there will be no more IPv conflicts. Then it has built-in authentication check, meaning that it has a built-in security check. Also, it allows for more efficient packet routes. So it is better and more efficient when routing. So these are the advantages of IPv6 compared to IPv4. Now let's look at the difference between IPv address and MAC addresses. So we said that MAC addresses identifies the physical address of a device on a network, while IP address identify the device on a global network. Then it is unique for device on the network may not necessarily be unique. It is assigned by the manufacturer of the device and is part of the network interface card. Dynamic IP addresses are assigned by Internet Service Provider using DHCP each time the device connects to the internet. Also, MAC address can be universal or local. Dynamic IP addresses change every time a device connects to the internet, while static IP addresses does not change. MAC address. When a packet is sent and received, the MAC address is used to identify the sender and recipient of the device, while IP address used in routing operations as they specifically identify where the device is connected to the internet. MAC address use 48 bits, IP address use 32 bits or 128 bits. MAC address can be UAA or LAA, while IP address can be static or dynamic. Now let's look at the two types of IP address and the difference between them. So we say static IP address are permanent, assigned to a device by the Internet Service Provider, meaning that this IP address is fixed It never changes. While dynamic address are assigned by internet service provider each time a device logs onto the internet. Now, static IP address used by remote servers, they are used by remote servers which are hosting a website. It is used by an online database. So it is great for servers or services where the location must stay the same. Okay? Dynamic IP address, greater privacy since they change each time a user logs on. Also, static IP address allows for faster upload and download speed. While dynamic IP address, it allows for greater privacy since they change each time a user logs on. Now let's look at router. So the main function of a router is to transmit internet and transmission protocols between two networks and also allow private networks to be connected. So basically, the router is the device that connects two networks together. For example, your home network to the internet. Now, the router enables data packets to be routed between different networks. So the router routes data packets to its correct destination. Okay, so router takes data transmitted in one format from a network and converts the data to a protocol and format that can be understood by another network, thereby allowing them to communicate. Now, for example, the data that is coming out from your network is a digital data. Now, when this data is being transmitted to the internet or to another network, this data has to be changed to analog data. So, a router would allow for that. Also, same thing when data is coming in from the internet to your own network, the data also needs to be converted. Okay, so broadband router sits behind a firewall, and the firewall protects the computers on a network. Okay, so that's all for the topic network hardware. Thank you guys so much for watching. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe.